My name is Brianna and I'm the farmer here at Blossom and Branch Farm. As a fifth generation farmer, I've learned a lot about the various methods and theories behind various growing techniques. Here at our regenerative flower farm, we highlight sustainable gardening and floristry practices, and we want to share them with you. Welcome to the farm.
Hi everyone, it's Bri here from Blossom and Branch Farm. Today we're going to be making this beautiful hand-tied bouquet. It can either go in a vase or you could use it as a bridal bouquet or a bridesmaid bouquet. Let's get working. Hand-tied bouquets are a great skill to have, even if you're not a florist, because it really helps to fill out your bouquet. So where we might grab some flowers from the store and bring them home and stick them in a vase and maybe they kind of just look like this, if we shape them into a hand-tied bouquet, it's going to give them a lot more fluff. It's going to spread the flowers out so we can see each one individually. So it's a great skill to have. It's also how we actually make our bridal bouquets. So it can either go into a vase or it can become a bridal bouquet. So hand-tied bouquet, great thing to learn. Let's do it. Now, normally I would incorporate a little bit more foliage into this bouquet, but it's the time of year where we have a lot of flowers to play with. And so we're gonna be playing with mostly flowers today. And that's, I think, an okay thing, right? To be playing with flowers more. So it's normally a great idea, again, just for texture's sake, to have a fair amount of filler, branches, those kinds of things. Today, our only filler really is going to be this bee balm. And what I'm starting to do here is pull off some of these lower leaves. So the lower leaves, if they're left in water, can lead to things like bacterial growth in the water. And so if you're going to put your hand-tied bouquet into a vase, which you can do, or you can use it as a bridal bouquet, if you're going to put it in a vase, the stems are going to be sitting in water. So anywhere where they're going to be sitting in water, you definitely want to make sure you remove any of this lower foliage. So we just grab the stem and pull straight down to remove those leaves. It's really easy, and you're just going to go through and do that with all of your stems before you start. So by doing it before we start, we don't have to worry about whether we're going to have a hand free to do that. Like we talked about, sometimes when we're building our bouquet, we don't really have a free hand. So it's good to do this before we start. The other nice thing about taking off all of this lower foliage, so if you are making this as a bridal bouquet, it's going to be held in hands. If you take off all of that lower foliage, you'll be able to fit more stems in. So that's obviously a pro. Let's get going with all of our various flowers here. We are going to start with a piece of chicken wire. We've shaped it into an oval, and by doing this, we're able to kind of have a free hand as we're building our bouquet. So before, we used to just hold all of those flowers in our hands. What happens when we do that is they kind of all get squished together. And the other disadvantage of that is if we have to let go for any reason, maybe to grab something, then the shape of the bouquet gets lost a little bit. So this is helpful for helping to maintain the shape of the bridal bouquet. So we're gonna start, and you'll see what we do. We just are going to slip these through. So the filler that we're going to be using today is going to be some bee balm. And this bee balm is actually great. It's really fragrant. I kind of call it our Dr. Seuss flower. I like the bee balm because it kind of has a little bit of a natural bend to it at the top. And so that can be helpful for helping to shape our bouquet. So I am just sliding these right through. And at the beginning, it's going to be a little bit hard, so they might be a little bit wobbly. Maybe I'll save the shorter stem for later. But they're not going to quite have the shape. So this is why I like to double over my, my chicken wire, because it gives a little bit more shape. It helps hold a little bit more on the bottom there. Okay, so we're going to continue to feed through this bee balm. And I am holding it loosely underneath. I kind of have a lightly cupped hand down here. We're gonna start pulling in some of these thicker stem flowers because they're going to help give our bouquet a little bit of shape. So we're gonna start with our chrysanthemums, feed it through. And now these thicker stem flowers, again, are going to stay in there a little bit better. So as we get more of these thicker stem flowers in, it's going to be easier to get some of the smaller, more fine stems in. Put another chrysanthemum over there. Let's pull in a little bit of this. This is actually peony foliage, which we love to use in the fall. When we're cutting down our peonies, we tend to have a lot of peony foliage sitting around, so it's a great thing to use in bouquets. Here's some 9 bark, which I love for the dark, kind of dramatic feel. Now, of course, it's October here for me, and so it is dahlia season. You always want to think about what flowers are in season when we're building our bouquets. So thinking about sustainability and floristry, it is so important to think about what is in season in our area. It might be different for everyone depending on where you are in the country. Certain things are going to be in season at different times. But in general, when we're using fresh flowers in the northern hemisphere anyway, it's probably going to be spring, summer, or early fall. So as I'm continuing to feed these, and you can see this is starting to get a little bit of shape to it. So it's nice because now I'm not having to hold on as tightly, things aren't really wobbling all over the place. I am going to put some of my more delicate flowers in here early on because they might get a little bit harder to add as we go through this bouquet. Because as we put more and more stems in, here's some delphinium. As we put more and more stems into this bouquet, it's just gonna get a little bit more and more full. Here we have some yarrow. Yarrow is a great North American native. There are lots of cultivars in various colors. Of course, to benefit the pollinators, the straight cultivar, the native version is going to be the best, which for us in our region is usually a yellow or a white. The closer we can stick to those colors, the better. This is actually a beautiful variety that we grow here at the farm. And I love yarrow because it has medicinal purposes. It's beautiful, it's drought tolerant, a xeric plant. It's a perennial, so you don't have to replant it every year. Those are all things that I love in a flower, in a plant. So I'm just continuing to feed these in. I do like to occasionally stop and hold my bouquet out away from my body so that I can see how it's coming along. Now we have here a big cafe au lait dahlia. Obviously these ones are a little bit of an attention grabber. So I like to nestle them up toward the front where they're going to get a little bit more visibility. It would be a real shame to have your cafe au lait dahlia hidden in your bouquet. I'm building this backwards because I'm building it toward the camera and not toward myself. So it's a little interesting, but you can see how I can take my hand away, and because of this chicken wire frame, it's still holding really nicely its shape. So I don't have to worry about it losing its shape just because I've let go, which when we used to do hand-tied bouquets, the other method, oops, I broke that one. When we used to do our old method, of course, and we just held it with our hands instead of using this frame, what would happen is that if we let go, sometimes it would totally lose the shape that we've been working on building so hard. So again, a great advantage of using this chicken wire, and it's reusable. So you can use this chicken wire over and over again in all of your bouquets. Dahlias are a fun one to grow. We grow almost 1,000 dahlias here at the farm. And the wonderful thing about dahlias is that they tend to start blooming toward the end of the season when a lot of other things are done blooming. So the dahlias kind of kick in toward the end of the summer. We wish they would bloom earlier, but they don't. Dahlias are just one of my absolute favorite flowers. Here in Colorado, we actually do have to dig up our dahlias every year. So we have nearly 1,000 dahlias, and you can imagine it takes us quite a bit of time to dig each one up individually. So we actually do store our dahlias unwashed with the dirt still on them. We dig them up, we let them dry for a couple days in a cool, dark spot, and then we pack them up into cardboard boxes and we store them away in our cooler for the winter. So that way we have them to replant the next year. We're not having to buy new ones every year because they are quite expensive. Now, storage doesn't always work. Storage is very intimidating with dahlias, and it does often happen that they don't make it through the winter, and sometimes you do have to buy new ones. Don't panic if that's the case. If you're not growing 1,000 of them, that's probably not a big deal if you have to buy a couple new ones every year, but it is really good to learn how to store them because it'll save you a lot of money every year if you can just store them and regrow them. All right, as we've been building our bouquet with our dahlias, almost running out of space here in my chicken wire form. So you can see the chicken wire has basically disappeared. You really can't see it any longer because there are so many blooms tucked in here. I'm gonna step back and hold it back again away from myself and see how the shape is looking. It's looking quite good. I think we have a little bit of a hole, maybe in this area. We have some zinnia. But I think it might need a partner, another dahlia. I think another dinner plate dahlia might just do the trick. So whenever I'm sticking these flowers through, I do want to make sure that the stem is going all the way through to the bottom and that it's going to reach the water. So if we choose to put this in water, and of course we will, even if it's just for a bridal bouquet, of course it needs to be in a vase until the wedding begins. So we do want to make sure that all of these flowers are in water. I think just tucking one more cafe au lait here. Yes, that was what it needed. I found another piece of this beautiful 9-bark. 9-bark is a shrub, grows quite well in North American gardens, and it also makes really great filler. Let's use some of these ginger snap dahlias for a little bit of color. You can see how I can hold this bouquet with one hand, where I normally would not be able to do that with, of course, a hand-tied bouquet without these mechanics in place, because as soon as I let go with the other hand, it would totally go all over the floor. It's okay to have some up and away from the shape. Sometimes that's nice to have a little independence for that flower. And then I do also like to make sure that around the neck of the bouquet, there are some flowers here so that if you can't see any of this chicken wire, that it gets hidden by some of these last flowers that get tucked. So you can either use a large flower, bushier flower down here, or you can use maybe some of your shorter stems or some foliage. So again, we don't have a lot of foliage in this bouquet on purpose because I really wanted to make this a flower-centric bouquet. But if we did have some foliage, if we were using a lot of foliage, we could tuck some foliage in around here. Because we don't, I actually have these chrysanthemums, and so we will use some more of those just to, again, bring down the bouquet so it's not all built up here. There's some interest down here. Okay, I'm feeling pretty happy with this when I step back. I really like the shape. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors, I'm going to do an initial cut of all these stems to about the same length. And there's our bouquet. Now you could choose to wrap this with any kind of ribbon that you wanted to around the base of the stems, but you can see I can take a hand away. The form is here, so I can actually really barely hold it at all, and it holds its shape. So again, that's the advantage of using that chicken wire, and it's sustainable. You're not having to use any floral foam, and gosh, how beautiful are these dahlias. Thanks for joining us today at the farm. We hope you'll join us next time for more sustainable gardening and floristry tips.